All right, I want to talk about this book. You probably submitted the final manuscript for this, I'm guessing 6 months ago, maybe even more, but now it's out. And literally, I know you blasted through the 100,000 copies on Amazon. It's the #2 book in the country. Tell me about the timing of this. Was this, I mean, I guess, did you know it was going to come out now? You obviously didn't know the events were going to happen. What are your thoughts on how big it's become, and is it actually changing the narrative?
Yeah, well, so we knew we had a great book. I would say probably back when I first posted my comments about George Floyd that blew up, and people started pre-ordering the book, and then I actually went back and added to the book so I could talk more formally about Black Lives Matter, about George Floyd. I believe I also added about the Rayshard Brooks case, just kind of talk about what was happening. And we had that opportunity because all of the printers were shut down during COVID-19. So right when my book was about to print, everything shut down, and I was just decided to add a bit more, add an entire chapter on culture during that time of the shutdowns. What I actually, and this story I haven't actually told yet, but when I did my video and it went so worldwide and 100 million views talking about George Floyd, corporate structure and Simon Schuster got very nervous. And they had hired, just like every other corporation that capitulates to the left, had hired a woman who was Black Lives Matter on wheels. I mean, they hired her to be the first Black publisher of Simon and Schuster. When she got hired, she immediately made it all about race and said that she was going to bring in people that tackled race issues. She was glad. And, long story short, I got a phone call from a different publishing agency asking if they could bid on my book. And I was like, bid on my book? What are you talking about? It's coming out in September. And they were like, well, we hear that your book is getting dropped by Simon & Schuster because of your views on George Floyd. And so I called them, they denied it. And then 24 hours later, they were like, yeah, we're not going to publish the book in September. We're not going to publish it before the election specifically. And not only that, we said, okay, well, when you're going to publish it, they wouldn't give us a date. And they said, well, we have a right, according to your contract, to just hold the book for 18 months. And just hold it. And obviously their hope is that if they hold it for 18 months, you'll just walk away from your contract and bring it somewhere else without them having to lose anything, because who wants their book held for 18 months? So this happened in June.
Wow.
And I saw absolute red. It was the angriest I think I've ever been. And my agent at the time was like, listen, we can just cut our bets here. Cut our losses, pardon, and we can take the book to a different publisher and they'll pay out whatever's owed to you. And I was like, do I seem like the person that's just going to walk away from this scenario peacefully? And I was very serious to them. I still mean what I said to my agent on the phone that day. I said, I want you to go back to Simon & Schuster, and I want you to make this very clear. If they put my book on ice and attempt to do this because I am not thinking in the manner that they think a Black person needs to think, I'm going to sue them, and I'm going to get lawyers that I can't possibly afford, and I'm going to sue them for racism. I'm going to sue them for discrimination. I'm going to sue them for harassment. And I'm also going to do a mass lawsuit against them for the plus 40,000 people that have pre-ordered this book. Because this is ridiculous. You're basically saying to me that this is not my book. The thesis, just to be clear, is personal responsibility. When is it the wrong time to talk about Black Americans being personally responsible? This isn't a book that's like insulting people for who they are. It's about saying that Black America is capable of doing it without government handouts. And they felt that that was the wrong time to talk about Black responsibility. I was in England when this started happening, actually, because I spent some time during the lockdown, and it was incredibly stressful. I was in my first trimester of pregnancy. I was taking 3 classes, and I have this viral video, and now I'm dealing with Simon and Schuster. And eventually, long story short, about 48 hours later, they folded, and we're just like, we'll just publish the book anyways. But it's an important story for people to know, because people don't know how hard I fight to allow Black Americans to think differently, like to allow us to not be seen as a collective that are viewed as victims. I feel like I have to be the first person to fall on the sword, so any other Black American is allowed to tell the truth. They specifically told my agent they didn't like my tweets about George Floyd. My tweets about George Floyd were his actual record. So what did you not like about my tweets about you? You didn't like how George Floyd lived his life. You didn't like you didn't like that I was exposing the truth, and that this person who had been sanctified and virtually treated like he was Jesus Christ by the media with a 3-day telecast funeral. You didn't like that the truth was coming out about who he was and how he lived his life, and the various Black Americans who were traumatized and targeted by him throughout his 9 to 11 jail stints that he had in his life. And that's the price for telling the truth. When people have decided on a narrative, that they've decided that this person is the ultimate victim. And it's a price that I pay over and over again. But I'm constantly fighting, sometimes publicly, but sometimes in that circumstance, privately.